Welcome to the Bookish Hour with your hosts, Sarah Eber and JC Kenny. We'll be starting soon. And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another very special episode of the Bookish Hour. I am Sarah Burr.
And I am JC Kenny. And I tell you what, Sarah, it's Thursday, it's Baby Friday, it is St. Patrick's Day Eve, and we are going to have a party tonight because we have three amazing guests here to help us celebrate our 1-year anniversary. So Sarah, why don't you take it away and introduce our wonderful panel tonight?
Yes, let's get bookish. It has been a fabulous week of celebrating so far. For those of you who weren't able to join us on night one, make sure that you check out our YouTube channel and see the fabulous panel that we had join us on Tuesday. Tonight is going to be just as fabulous because we are, as JC said, joined by a wonderful group of writers. And to get us started this evening, I am going to ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves, what their latest book is, and how they got started writing. Joan, would you like to do the honors?
Hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I am a third-generation Floridian, and for those who don't know, that is a rarity. I started writing early. I started in elementary school, wrote 2 paragraphs and didn't know what I was doing. So I didn't try again for about 10 years, but I've been writing on and off. I started with historicals, moved to cozies, went to suspense, then back to mystery because I love mysteries.
Yes, love a good mystery. That's what we do. That's what we do here best, I think, at the Bookish Hour. But we love all books, no matter the genre. Leah, not only are you a mystery writer, but you also write romance. Can you tell us a little bit about you, your books, and your writing journey?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Leah Dobrinska. Thank you to Sarah and Jim for having me back. I'm so excited to be here. Like Joan, I feel like I've been writing my whole life. I remember the first sentence I wrote in first grade. It was, "I love trees," in my little green notebook. I had an illustration that went with it, and I don't think my artistic skills have advanced as much as my writing skills have. I hope I've gotten to be a better writer. But yeah, so I've pretty much been writing since then. I wrote bad poetry in high school, and I was an English literature major in college, but I didn't start writing fiction until several years later. I had our first child, and I wanted to stretch my brain in a different way. So I tried out my hand at writing in November in National Novel Writing Month, and I tried to write a romance novel. So I started as a romance novelist. I have published 3 full-length small-town romances. They read very much like Hallmark movies. And most recently, I published Death Checked Out. It's my debut cozy mystery. So I, too, love the mystery genre, and I'm happy to be part of this community as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this community. We're glad that you're here. Annette, tell us about your journey.
Oh my, my first writing implement was a crayon. I mean, I wrote stories and I drew cartoons, and like Leah, my artistic skills never really advanced much beyond that. When I was in high school, I wrote novel length fiction, which was basically fan fiction, although we didn't call it then, but in pencil, longhand, and spiral bound notebooks. And I would pass the notebooks around in study hall for my readers, my fans, to read what the latest chapter was, sort of like serials, and they would give me the notebook back and say, write more, which is very addictive. I think you'll all agree. I still love to hear that. And now I've run out of fingers. I think it's 13 published novels. The latest of which is the first in a new series, Where the Guilty Hide, set in Erie, PA, and I live in southwestern Pennsylvania on 10 acres of what was my my grandfather's and great grandfather's dairy farm. So I'm fourth generation on this property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very glad that your classmates were supportive. And because
Yeah.
like sometimes kids in high school can be pretty mean.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were cheering you on, that's amazing. I'm so glad they did, because you're here with us today and we get to talk about more things bookish. I would love to know, we all have established our love of mystery, either traditional or cozy. Why did you choose to write that particular genre out of all the other ones that are out there? And Annette, why don't you take this one first?
Sure. When I was writing that fan fiction, it was like Westerns and science fiction and all different genres. And then somewhere late in high school, I discovered Mary Higgins Clark. And that was it. That's what, pushed me over into crime fiction. And I started writing that. I didn't get anything published way back then, but that became my first love and has been ever since.
That's Mary Higgins Clark. So many of her books are just
Where Are the Children?
so iconic. The one
I'm looking over my shoulder. I've got a couple here on the bookshelf. I need to find them.
the very first one I remember reading was actually like in a hospital waiting room, because somebody had left it behind and I needed a book to read. And I think I was in like third grade, and it was about a woman was like trapped in a coffin. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird to be reading, but I got hooked.
Yeah, I got to meet her. There
wow.
you go. There you go. Yeah, I got to meet her at BoucherCon in Cleveland. And
wow.
rode in the elevator with her and got to thank her. I told her, that she was basically responsible for what I was writing. And, she thanked me and she shook my hand, and it was very cool.
Wow. That is
starstruck moment.
That gives me chills. Leah, how did you come about so you have your romance, small town romance that you write. How did you get the mystery writing bug?
I think so. As a reader, I prefer a gentler mystery. I'm sort of a scaredy cat. So the cozy genre has always, it's tracked with what I like to read. And I think as a result, what I like to write. But also, I think the transition from writing small town romance novels was very fluid to moving into cozy mysteries, which are so much, in a lot of cases, focused around that close-knit small town community. So it was a pretty natural transition for me. And though I started as a romance novelist, I grew up on Nancy Drew. So I think having that in my background, I always knew I wanted to try my hand at some type of mystery with an amateur sleuth someday. So that's how I got into cozies.
Well, I'm glad you did. Joan, how did you decide to do the kind of traditional mystery route?
I grew up on Nancy Drew too, and Agatha Christie. I love those. And the inspiration for my novel actually came from Sleuth Fest. One year they had it in Orlando, and they had Ace Atkins speaking, and he was writing Robert B. Parker books. Well, they also introduced Reed Farrell Coleman, who had just been chosen by the widow of Robert B. Parker to write another series that he had. So when they were together, it just struck me, what if they had to compete for that honor of writing this legacy contract? And that's why my book is set like that. I have a man who has died. He's a famous author, and he has set up a contest that the people who there are finalists who are chosen to complete the last 25 pages of his novel. And they go to an island, and that's how this book is set up. People's trapped on a remote tropical island. What could possibly go wrong?
It sounds like a mix between like a cruise vacation versus like Knives Out.
Yeah, I was thinking Knives Out.
Uh-huh. And then there were none.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. But I
Well,
love a good whodunit. I love the puzzles. And I love the justice aspect. I want fair play and for the villain to be caught.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, because that
And-
doesn't happen in real life all the time.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And it's nice that we get to create these almost a comfort for readers that it's like, justice will be served. And
Mhm.
that's what we can bring with our stories.
Yeah. And one of the things kind of along that line, we have, first off, Claudia mentioned she got her start reading Mary Higgins Clark also with mysteries. So just kind of wanted to mention that. And we do have a question from Mary Monin, M.A. Monin, who was actually joined us Tuesday night. Leah, I'm going to start with you, and then I'd like to hear Annette and Joan weigh in on this too. Leah, Mary wants to know whether or not, as a romance author, whether or not your mysteries contain romance. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Good question, Mary. Yes. So I am slowly but surely working some romance into my cozy mysteries. I like a mystery with a romantic subplot. I don't love a love triangle as a personal preference. So my books probably will not contain those. Never say never, I guess. Who knows what happens? But yeah, I'm slowly working my amateur sleuth into the beginnings of a relationship. And if anybody has read Death Checked Out, my amateur sleuth is very cheerful. Her name is Greta, and she is like a glass half full kind of a girl. And the detective who is new to town is her polar opposite. So initially the two are like, they don't get along at all. And I've had a ton of fun with that. But as I work through the next book in the series and get that one ready to publish, it's been a lot of fun to play with these two and how they interact with each other. So there were some seeds planted in the first book. I hope that are kind of showing readers where we'll be headed with Greta and the detective, but it is my intention to carry that out even further with books 2 and 3.
Well, cool. How about you, Annette?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's human nature. So I think it's, you kind of, in my mind, you have to have some sort of, romantic relationship in the books. In my Zoe Chambers series, it's when the series first starts out, Zoe and Pete are just friends, and they're desperately trying to keep it that way because they both suck at romance. And after the second book, and I was trying to not have them actually get together, trying to maintain that tension. My readers started protesting and demanding to know, when are they getting together? I was afraid of the moonlighting syndrome, that if they got together, things would, fall apart with the story. But yeah, they've now over 11 books. They're still together, and now they're married. I don't think I'm giving a whole lot away telling that part. But the one thing I regretted was that when I started this series, they had already known each other and were working together, and they were friends for a number of years. And I always wished I had started earlier in that relationship. So now when I've started this new series, again, there's two characters. There's Detective Matthias Honeywell, and then a freelance photographer, Emma Anderson. And I started with them meeting.
Nice.
And it doesn't go well. So they've got a long way to go. Hopefully I have a chance to write several more books and build on that.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, how about you, Joan? Romance in your books?
There is.
Okay.
It turns out that my main character knew one of the finalists from college. They had dated for about 6 months, and he dumped her for Miss Hospitality. So she is still not over that. She is still angry about it. So yes, there is a romance, and he's trying so hard, and no, she's not having it. She's been burnt once.
And I think you guys have teased us a little bit about your characters so far. And before we kind of dive into some more of our viewer questions, which if you are watching this live, please make sure that you're logged into YouTube so you can chat with us, so you can ask any questions of our panelists. We would love to take your questions. I would like to know, though, a little bit more about your main characters. If you haven't already expanded on it, tell us a little about their profession and what is their best and or worst trait that you think kind of either helps or hinders their mystery sleuthing. Annette, why don't you take this one first?
Okay. Well, going with Zoe, because she's, she and Pete have been around the longest, 11 books. Professionally, Zoe starts the series as a paramedic because I used to be an EMT. I worked on our local ambulance service, so I was able to draw on that. But she was also a deputy coroner. And as the series progressed, now she is the county coroner. So I've had to do a lot more research because but her best trait, I think, is that she's loyal. She's fiercely loyal to those she considers friends, loyal to a fault sometimes, which brings me to, I think, her worst trait is that she tends to sometimes react too quickly and be spontaneous and impulsive. And that struggle to be loyal oftentimes takes her into areas where she probably shouldn't go. And that's what gets her into a lot of trouble.
I like that trait as a kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Joan, tell us about your main character in The Finalist.
Well, here is the finalist.
A beautiful cover.
Ooh, love that
Thank
cover.
Need to be there.
Thank you. My main character is Risa Marr, and she was a travel writer until COVID started. She became a grant writer. Her husband was killed, and now she is a single mom to a 3-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So, yes. So probably her best trait is that she would do anything for her child. She is trying to support them on her salary. There was no life insurance. Yes. And they're not doing well. The grant job is about to end. So this contest means everything to her. If she could just win it, $1 million is at stake and a legacy publishing contract. So it's important to her. Probably the one thing that she is not good at or that hurts her is that she wants to help other people to a flaw. She just, it's good, it's wonderful, and yet it gets her into all kinds of trouble. She's always trying to get somebody out of scrapes.
That you could see how that kind of lends itself to the mystery and getting involved in mysteries to help other people out of, being a suspect and such.
And herself. She is also a suspect.
Leah, you mentioned that Greta is the eternal optimist. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for her?
I think that is it's sort of a double-edged sword for Greta. So yes, Greta Plank is my main character, the amateur sleuth, always with the rose-tinted glasses. And I think sometimes that can mean that she borders on being a little bit naive, just because she just believes in the good, which is a beautiful trait to have. But when people can then take advantage of you for that, then it can turn out to be not so helpful when you're trying to figure out who murdered your neighbor. But so I think that is probably a good and a bad trait for Greta. She is the library director in a small northern Wisconsin town. It's set on a lake. And so as a result of her own personality as well as her career, I think one of her most helpful traits is she's very inquisitive. She wants to know things. She likes to learn things. And I think our main characters have a lot in common. I would also say Greta is fiercely loyal. She's a great friend, and she wants to see justice served.
Excellent. Those are all traits that I think resonate very much with readers.
Yeah, and I think readers and fans of mystery in general, whether it's on the page or on television, because we like that happy ending, And Joan, I think, like you said, the good guys win, and that kind of leads me to a question that our friend of the show and a wonderful woman who's been a guest, actually, Grace Topping. First off, she wanted to mention to you, Joan, she was at that same Sleuth Fest and said it was amazing. But Grace also wanted to know, kind of get your takes on this. With so many mysteries being optioned for television movies, do you ever have that in mind when you're actually writing your stories? So how about Leah? What do you think?
Man, that's the dream, isn't it? Like that would be so cool. I think, yeah, I don't know if I necessarily am conscious of it as I'm drafting, but certainly I think when I'm writing certain scenes, they become almost like movies in my mind, which can be awesome because it's happening so fast for me that I can just go with it and type out the scene. But in other cases, I think it can be tricky to translate the way that a scene is portrayed on film or on, in a TV show on the page. And I've noticed that specifically with like the way that a TV show can pan and you can see the person hiding behind the door while you're also seeing the events happening in the room. And it's like, well, whose perspective when I'm writing this do I want that scene to be from? So I think that there's a limitation or a way that we as writers have to be creative that maybe a screenwriter or when somebody is see any of my books turned into movies or TV shows or anything like that. And I think mystery specifically lends itself as we're seeing to that medium.
How about you, Joan?
I write visually. And I agree with you, Leah. It is very important to figure out the point of view. I've gone back and changed it so many times because I always have that person behind the door who's waiting with a hatchet or something like that. So anyway, I would love that part. I have the audiobook now of my book, and that was thrilling. But to have a movie, that would be it.
And Annette, you, especially with Zoe, you've got quite a bit of potential material for a TV series, for example.
I've been contacted 3 different times for 3 different books from Hollywood producers. Somebody approached me several years now about the Zoe series. And I was like, this guy has to be scamming me. So I looked him up and no, it was a legit studio. But my publisher had usually, small presses, the publisher holds the rights. So while they negotiated, it fell through. So nothing happened there. And then Death by Equine, my standalone, I had an agent from Hollywood, a film and literary agent, was interested in it before it was ever published. She knew that I was writing it. She was a fan of thoroughbred racing, and she contacted me about it. We worked on it for about a year. And interesting story. This was back when HBO was coming out with a TV series starring Dustin Hoffman called Luck. Does anybody remember that TV series?
Mm-mm.
Probably not. Because there were very few episodes aired and then it got pulled, and PETA was suing the film company, the producers, because several horses died during the filming of it.
Oh gosh.
So this agent called me and she said, I love this book, but right now, I'll never forget what she said. She said, thoroughbred racing is toxic in Hollywood.
Holy smokes.
Nobody wants to hear the word toxic in relation to their books. So anyhow, that kind of fell through. And then just very recently, my agent told me she had been contacted by a producer interested in the new series. So again, she passed that along to my editor, and we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's fun. I think it's fun, especially because, once you have somebody interested, you start thinking about casting.
Mhm.
The author that has no say in, but hey, it's fun to dream.
I definitely feel like I would take, like, especially when I'm writing, I do think of actors that could play different characters, or if I'm describing somebody, I'm like, ooh, like I could try to liken
yeah.
them. And I've been practicing my Academy Award speech since I was like 12. For what? I don't know. It changes. Like sometimes it's like adaptation, sometimes it's lead actress, all of this fun stuff. But it's
You never
it's
know.
really fun to think about, and it is the dream.
Well, I tell you what, yes, dream big. We're rooting for you, Annette. And as Joan and Leah, you too. You never know when we're going to get that call that says, "Hey, we want to buy your script." So
I do have the rights to my film, so feel free to contact me. Whoever's listening.
okay.
Anybody listening? Yeah.
There we go. Well, we do have another question. I tell you what, folks tuning in, thank you all for these amazing questions. This is a really good one. They're all good, but I think this is always interesting. Jill White asks, and Annette, I'm going to start with you. What is the hardest part about writing the next book in the series?
Oh, that's a good one, which means I can't think of a really good answer right off the bat. The hardest thing about writing the next book in the series is always just, well, I'm doing that right now. Monday I started chapter 1 of the next book in the Zoe series, so I'm at that point, and just coming up with, I like to know when I'm starting, before I've started, who the killer is and why. Some people write by the seat of their pants and don't know until the end. I need to know that much at least. And just getting that, and then, kind of plotting out enough of the story to know that it's going to make sense, and, that the plot isn't going to slam into a wall, 3/4 of the way through. So that is kind of hard. But once I get that figured out, I don't have problems with the threads of the story that are about the characters. I've come to know, the regular cast of characters. I've come to know them well enough that I know where those storylines are eventually going. There's always arcs over a series of books. But it's been, getting the motivation, why the killer is doing, and without letting the killer just be a 2-dimensional Snidely Whiplash type character. I want them to have a really good motivation, and I think that's, for me at least, that's the hardest part, getting started.
How about you, Leah?
I am in the same boat right now. I am also working on the second book in the Cozy Mystery series that started with Death Checked Out, and I feel like I can come up with a lot of answers why this is so challenging. I think imposter syndrome has reared its ugly head. Am I going to be able to do it again? Am I going to be able to write another compelling mystery? I think I worry about things getting stale, or I don't want my storylines to fall flat, or my characters to feel 2-dimensional, or I want to keep people on the edge of their seat and wanting to read more. I do.
Leah, I hate to disappoint you, but that doesn't go away.
I'm listening to you going, oh no. Yeah, I think it'll just always be that way, which is good, right? It like pushes you to stretch yourself creatively, which I think is a really positive thing. But in the moment, it can feel a little crippling, and you're just like, oh, I have to just start and do my best, and work out the kinks in editing, I think. But it's like getting that first draft out for me is always that, then I can exhale, and then I at least have something on the page that I can work with. I do think it's been interesting having had a mystery out now, and being able to, I independently published my romance novels. So this mystery is by far, I feel like, reached more people, and just been received by more people. So there's been more feedback on this one, and feedback across the board. So I think I've also had those sorts of voices, some really positive and some not as positive, or people offering suggestions, or I'd like to see this, or I hope that this happens in a future book. And it's the first time I've ever had that going on in the background. And it's been interesting and a good experience for me, I think, to sift through some of that and determine what I want to take with me and include, or how I want to work with what I've learned.
That is, I tell you what, imposter syndrome. I'm up there with Annette, Leah. I tell you what, because I've got 13 books that I published, and yeah, every time you start one, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this ever again.
I've forgotten how to write. I have no clue.
Yes. Yeah. What are these things? This keyboard thingy? I don't even know what these letters mean. So.
We're supposed to be making her feel better.
I know.
Hey, we're empathizing.
Yes, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, after all of those positive thoughts, Joan, how about you?
Well, I'm in a different situation because mine is a standalone.
Oh, okay.
So I am creating new characters as we speak. I am working on finished the first draft of a suspense novel. The finalist was more of the mystery with suspense. This is suspense with a mystery. I love having a small set of characters. The finalists have fewer than 12 people on this remote island, and my new one has fewer than 10 people. So getting them to interact and have enough action to keep the story going and the subplots, it's challenging, but I'm enjoying it.
Creating is fun. I love the beginning of something new, which is, I think, why I'm always like doing something else. It's like, oh, I'll put this on the back burner for a little while, but because that creation and getting involved with these new characters is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and speaking of exciting, this has been so much fun. We are already halfway through the show. So thank you again. Thank you all three, Annette, Joan, and Leah, for being here. For those of you out there in cyberspace, thank you all for joining us. Just a little reminder that we are doing an anniversary giveaway, which is going to be a $20 Amazon gift card, as well as some select J.C. Kenney and Sarah E. Burr books. But if you haven't entered yet, you need a secret word to do that. Tell us about it, Sarah.
The secret word is bookish. So if you guys can make sure that you're logged into YouTube and go ahead and type in the word bookish. If you were here on Tuesday night, your responses have already been recorded, so no need to type again, and you unfortunately don't get extra points for being here, but you do get our eternal gratitude for joining us live both evenings. So yes, make sure that you type the word bookish into the chat, and we will be drawing the winner at the end of the evening. And if we'll give you the directions to get your information to us, so hang tight and please make sure to enter into the giveaway. Before we get into a couple more questions from our audience members, I want to kind of swing back a little bit about your writing process and kind of flesh out a little bit more. How does a writing session, like a typical writing session, look for you? And are there any tools or resources that you swear by that folks who are aspiring writers, or trying to think about how they want to begin their writing path, that you could recommend to them that have been helpful for you on your journey? And let's do Leah first.
Okay. My writing process, I guess it looks a little bit different depending on what I'm working on, whether I'm editing or drafting. But when I am setting out to draft a book, I call myself a fast drafter. I don't know if that's an actual term or if it's just something I made up, but basically what that means is I try to get the first draft out as fast as possible. I am a mom of 4 young kids, so my time to write is pretty limited. And what I've adopted is to sit down. Usually, I don't even sit at a desk. I usually sit on a couch or somewhere in my house and take my cell phone timer out and set a timer for 30 or 40 minutes and put it next to me and just write as fast as I can for that period of time. And usually that's as much time as I have in a day to write. But but it's worked for me. And when I do it, I can write a novel in a couple months worth of time, and it's really messy and really rough. It's a rough first draft, but again, it's at least that kind of like initial document that then I can mold and shape and turn into something that hopefully readers will love down the road. But yeah, my writing process is pretty boring. As a result, I just write really fast, and then edit as much as I can when it's all done. And I don't even have like a fancy timer that I use. I've looked at getting one, and maybe I will someday, but right now my trusty little cell phone clock app works really well, and I just draft in Microsoft Word. So it's like a no frills operation around here. But I would say the craft book that has helped me the most has been Save the Cat Writes a Novel, in just learning the different story beats. And now that I've been writing, I've written several novels, I kind of have internalized those story beats. So when I sit down to plot, they just kind of, it comes a little bit more naturally to me. But especially when I was starting out, I referenced that book frequently. I still have it nearby just so I can look back on it.
That, I mean, the fast draft process, it like blows my mind. I am in awe that you've been able to like write these amazing books in these short little sprints, like totally amazed. And I love it. Annette, how does your writing process look like? And let's talk about like the drafting process.
Drafting, I told you guys earlier, I think before we were live, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. Not by choice. My husband goes to work early. But after I get him off to work and I have a cup of coffee, because nothing happens without coffee, I get to work pretty early in the day. And I have to get my writing done first in the morning before anything else, crops up. I write usually for about an hour. And this is an ideal day. Sometimes stuff does happen, or appointments, that you have to go to. But I write for about an hour, and I'll take a little bit of a break, get another cup of coffee, and then come back and write for another hour. And I usually get between 750 and 1,500 words done that way, depending on, I'm not so much a fast writer like Leah is, because sometimes I'm going back. Today was really slow because I was writing some very technical scenes that I kept having to go back and tweak. So I just barely made my minimum word goal for today. And then business stuff happens later in the day. As for tools and things that I use, I draft in Word, but I have Scrivener on my computer, and I use Scrivener for everything else. That's what I use to outline in, and I keep track of my characters and locations and little details like that. All my research goes into files and folders in Scrivener. Any backstory, a lot of times I'll write out the backstory, even though it's not going to show up on the page, but I write it out and I store it there so I can refer back. And it's the bad guy's backstory, what led him to do what he's doing, or how he accomplished the murder. So all of that I do in Scrivener. This book I also am using, it's a sister software to Scrivener. It comes from the same company, and it's called Scapple, and it's kind of mind mapping. So I've written myself into a complicated plot with this one. So I've got a lot of mind mapping little notes on Scapple. And I also, by the way, I have Save the Cat Writes a Novel next to the couch.
Oh, nice.
I love that tip, Annette, about the character motivations, because I can't remember what book this was now, but I had a editor that was like, I need to know more about the motivations behind a couple of these supporting characters. And I was like, oh, like, okay. And trying to really go in and figure that out, because like we know our main characters pretty deeply, but for the people who are peripheral to them, like, was like, oh, that's a really like interesting thing to experiment with, and thus it like really helped me enhance them on the page. So I think that that's
I teach a workshop about writing three-dimensional characters, especially the bad guy and the secondary characters. I do like to spend a lot of time fleshing them out.
that's a very good writing tip of
Yeah.
knowing all of your characters inside
Yeah.
and out.
Mhm.
Joan,
Yeah.
can you share a little bit about your writing process?
I am definitely a plotter, and I do not write fast. I'm so envious. I love that. But when I start a book, I have a long outline. My current outline is 25 pages,
Wow.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
double spaced,
Mhm.
because I need to know what's going to happen so I get the arcs right. So I remember which character I'm using. I have multiple points of view. I have two in the current work in progress. So what I like to do on a perfect day is to wake up early while the house is quiet. There's not a mower outside. People are making noises, and I'll write then. I enjoy writing in the morning, but as soon as it gets light, if it's a beautiful day, I will go outside onto my back porch. I love to look at the birds, the flowers, anything that can distract me. I want to do that with my cup of coffee.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Yes, I can watch a squirrel for a long time. But I do. I write to my plot, and of course, it changes along the way. I use Post-it notes a lot. Well, one of the books I just grabbed it that was very helpful to me, is still helpful, is the Emotion Thesaurus.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
see my little Post-its in it. I use it a lot because I have words that I have things that I try to explain, and it's like I explain it the same way every time. So I really need to go through that and say, okay, she didn't just nod and wink, or she, didn't shrug. Those common words. I've used nod a lot. Nod, nod,
Yeah.
nodded. He nods, she nods, they nodded.
One of my writing mentors calls that bobbleheadism.
Yes.
Your characters are always nodding their bobbleheads.
Now, when I'm editing, I can do that any time of the day. And I enjoy doing it during sports broadcasts when my husband is watching TV, baseball or golf. I will just sit down there and, I'm still with him, but I'm paying attention to my novel and look up every once in a while. So it's fun to edit for me. I would rather do that than to write the first draft. The first draft is like pulling teeth, to forget the cliche. But once I have that down, I feel like I can go back and I can change things. And also, I think it's interesting. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but when I write something down, I will agonize over, is this forever? Can I change this? So I want to know in my first draft, this is following my plot. I can get there from here.
Well, I tell you what, that thank you all for sharing, because I think one of the things among others is, besides showing that you're all extremely creative and extremely talented, it just goes to show we all have our own processes, and there's no wrong way to write a book and write a story. So, but we do have one question, Mary, directed this to you, Joan. Since you've written a mystery, now you're writing a suspense. Do you have a preference for one or the other?
I enjoy writing what I'm writing at the time. How's that for a non-answer?
Very diplomatic.
Yes.
Everything that I write, though, is a whodunit in one way or another. I just love that. I need to know, again, that justice will be served. I love figuring out the puzzle. So whether that's suspense or a mystery, they're intertwined for me.
And Mary said that is a good answer. So
thank you, Mary.
And we also have a question from Sherry, who would like to know, and this is a question for everybody, how big of a part does setting play in your writing? And Leah, you had alluded to how small town romance and cozy mystery share similar settings. Why don't you take this one for us first?
Sure. I love this question. Setting to me in all of my books so far has been hugely important. I based the setting of my small town romance series very closely off of my hometown, the small town where I grew up. So even having that map in my head, I can so easily move my characters around, and that is so ingrained in me that I feel like I've been able to bring that setting to life in those books for my readers. And so many readers have told me that they just want to go to Mapleton, this fictional town that I've created in those books, and they love that place. And I wanted to replicate that as much as I could with a new setting in my cozy mystery. And I used as inspiration a small town where my family vacationed for 1 week every summer in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And I had to embellish quite a bit because the little lakeside town where we went to wasn't much. It was a resort and a one strip of, I think there was like a bar. It was not a lot. But I've had so much fun just kind of taking those sensory memories and what that place what it felt like to me and what it meant to me on like a core level, and trying to infuse those feelings, those senses into the book to make another setting that people just really feel at home in and want to be invested in and want to go back to visit. So as a writer thus far, setting has almost become like another character for me. And I think there's a lot that you can do with it, and different seasons and all the things. So my books are setting heavy, I would say.
And the atmosphere, I think, lends itself so well to the cozy mystery genre, and having that warm, welcoming feeling is, again, like it is another character. And I love the way that you phrase that.
Yeah.
Joan, for the finalists, everybody's on an island, and that island is a very key figure in the plot of your book. Can you share how much it drives what's going on?
It's tremendous. I write about warm weather settings. I have never lived up north. I don't know what snow is. I don't want to know. I chose this island because I wanted it to be remote. And it's a fictional island. And it was very hard to find a name that hasn't been chosen for an island. There is one other key island in the world, but it's up where Iceland, it's not tropical at all. So setting is usually important for me. I enjoy taking the reader to a place where they want to visit. It's appealing to them. This was a beach type setting. They got there by charter boat. It's a rich person's paradise, and they can really feel that this is someplace, if they had a chance to go, they would go. But then as you progress with it, you realize that paradise can be deadly. What I'm doing with my current book is I set it on the Gulf Coast of Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, because I think that's another place that people really want to go and visit. It's not a theme park in Florida, but it's the beach. It's warm. It's welcoming. It's a place where you could imagine yourself going and vacationing or just visiting family or friends, but it's not your tiny town, and yet it's a closed setting, in that most of the book takes place on one street. So it has elements of a cozy mystery in that as well. So I've got cozy, I've got traditional, I've got suspense. I've got a little bit of all of it in my books.
And setting is
Yes.
super important.
It's huge.
Annette,
Yes.
how does your setting drive your plot, or how does it how do your characters interact with it?
Oh, well, the Zoe, Pete and Zoe series is set in farm country where I live. It's a fictionalized version. Excuse me. But Joan, if you want to experience snow, you can read a couple of my books, because I love to use weather.
That's
And
as close as I want to get to snow. Thank you.
Snowfall is a great source of difficulty for saving evidence. But there are different kinds of crime that happen, excuse me, in the country as opposed to in the city. I mean, I had a death by power takeoff, which most people don't know what that is. It's part of a tractor. So, it's a whole different world, writing murder cases that are solved in the country. And Pete Adams, my chief of police in my series, was a police officer in Pittsburgh. So he's kind of a city guy who is experiencing country living and, dealing with a different kind of crime. Now, my new series, I decided to set in Erie, Pennsylvania, and instead of a fictionalized location in the country, I've gone to a real location, which is, a little bit of a small city. But again, I like to use the location. Presque Isle State Park has a gorgeous beach where dead bodies wash up, So yeah, I think the location almost becomes another character in a way.
Mhm.
Well, I tell you what, Annette, our good buddy Mark Baker agrees, because he says Annette's snow scenes make me feel cold in Southern California.
Oh, what a compliment. Yeah.
That's a good compliment.
Thank you.
All right. Before we head into our last segment of rapid fire questions, I do have one kind of wrap up for you all. And again, we're about 10 minutes until our hour ends.
Wow.
So for our viewers, if you haven't had a chance to log in and type in the word bookish to enter into our anniversary bundle, make sure you do that. But it is award season and very exciting. Annette and Joan, you were both nominated for Agatha's this year. And Leah, your book together with you and Death Checked Out really took on a lot at the Indie Today Awards. So I wanted to kind of just let you bask in the glow of how wonderful you all are. But
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how did it feel and how did you find out about your nomination, your win, and all the feelings that came with it? Leah, why don't you bring us through that?
Sure. Well, thank you. It's very kind of you. And I said when I found out I was going to be with Annette and Joan, I'm like, I'm just going to sit back and soak up the awesomeness of these two amazing Agatha nominees. But the Indies Today Award, they accept nominations across different genres. So I had one of my Christmas small town romance in the running for the romance category, and then Death Checked Out was in the running for the mystery category. And my romance novel won, and Death Checked Out was the runner-up in the mystery category. And I got emails notifying me of both of those things, in a sequence of a couple hours. So it was I got one, and then I got the next, and I was floored. I completely humbled. I wasn't expecting it at all. And it's such an honor. There are just so many amazing books in so many amazing genres. So to have mine recognized in this way was really, really cool. And I think we all we hope our books resonate with people. We want readers to enjoy them and to have a positive reading experience. So I think it was especially cool for me to read the reviews of what a third party said about my books. And that was the neatest part for me, was to have somebody say Death Checked Out was intelligent and fun. And I was like, well, that's great. That's everything I could hope for. So it's been a really cool experience.
Perfect. Well, very well deserved as well.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Best day ever, getting 2 notifications.
yeah.
Thank you.
Joan, tell us about how your best first novel nomination. That's a very exciting, you're out of the gate and it's wow. So how did that feel?
Thank you very much. It was amazing, but it was also unbelievable to me. I received an email and I read it 3 times because I was sure that there was a knot in there that they were saying, you are not nominated for.
Or someone was punking you. That's always what I'm thinking. Who is this?
So after about 5 minutes, I decided I would print off the email instead of reading it continuously. And I saw in the email, it said, do not tell anyone. This is the secret until we officially announce it. So what I did was I took this printed email, which was proof that it really was true, and I handed it to my husband. I didn't say a word. I just handed it to him. And he was like, "You're nominated." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." I was so excited and so honored because, it's the first novel. I wasn't expecting it. And to know that people enjoy it, that really helps. It makes me want to write more. I love that people are entertained by it. It's just a real honor. There are some wonderful writers in the category that I'm nominated for. I don't know if they'll win or if I'll win, but what they say about being nominated really is true, because forever and ever, I'll say I'm an Agatha nominated author.
Yes.
And that just
That's
means
cool.
so much.
And again, like super congratulations. We're all
Yeah.
so
Thank
happy
you,
for
thank
you.
you.
Mhm.
Annette, best contemporary novel.
Yeah.
How tell us how you reveled in
Among
that.
other awards.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, this is my 6th nomination. And when I was nominated for Best First as well. And I will tell you, Joan, what Hank Philippi Ryan told me: embrace every moment of this lead up to the ceremony. Enjoy it. Yeah, when I got for the best, the funny thing is, we used to get phone calls. And phone calls are cool, but yeah, you can't look at it and keep rereading it to make sure you didn't hallucinate it. But when I got the phone call congratulating me on my nomination for Best First Novel, I screamed. I hope I didn't, puncture anybody's eardrums, but I screamed. And then the following year, when I got my first nomination for Best Contemporary, I didn't scream, I cried. And I think I've cried for every nomination since. Now, yeah, this year they, instead of calling, they emailed, and it's like every time it's like, this is never going to happen again. I have to enjoy every moment because this will be the last time I get nominated. So I never expect it, and I got the email, same as you did, Joan, and I read it. It was at the breakfast table that I was reading it. And I kind of put my head down, and my husband said he thought I had read that somebody had died because I was crying. And I said, no, I was nominated again.
Happy
So
tears.
yeah, it is very happy tears. And 6 nominations so far. I have never won. It's always been an honor to be nominated, and I love that. But I do have this little award.
Look at that one.
This one, I won the Dr. Tony Ryan Book Award last year. It's for excellence in thoroughbred racing literature for Death by Equine. And there was a big fancy ceremony in Lexington, Kentucky that my husband and I went to, and did not know there were 3 finalists at this bash. And none of us, all 3 of us thought it was going to be one of the other 2. And I was absolutely convinced, because I'm so good at not winning, I just go and enjoy being nominated and breathing the rarefied air. And my husband and I were standing in the back of the room when they announced that Death by Equine was the winner. And my husband thought he was going to have to catch me because my knees just went weak and I almost fell down. So yeah, that was very cool. So I am now officially not just nominated, I am now officially an award winning.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, you're all complete winners in our books, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Well, you know what? We've only got a couple minutes left, which boo hiss, because this has been so lovely. But we do have time for hopefully a couple rapid fire things here real quick. And the way I'm going to do this, we'll go Annette first, Joan second, Leah third. Just real quick. First off, favorite mystery movie or TV show?
The Murdoch Mysteries.
Nice. William. Clue. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I don't watch a lot of TV or movies, but I love Mystery 101 on the Hallmark Channel.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. And let's see here. We kind of talked about one of this earlier. This is an interesting one here, real quick. Favorite sleuth, professional or amateur?
For me, professional, I think.
Okay. Joan?
Amateur.
Okay. Leah?
Amateur.
Amateur. Okay. Split. Tuesday night, we had a split vote on that too. So excellent. And one other question before we go. If you could partner up with another author to write a brand new mystery, either standalone or series, who would that author be?
I'm going to name 3 because they're my 3 critique partners, because we all know each other's voices so well. It would be an easy thing. Liz Milliron, Peter W.J. Hayes, and Jeff Bortz.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Joan, how about you?
If we're going to dream, let's dream big. So I will say James Patterson, because how
Nice.
cool would that be?
Nice. That would be cool. And Leah?
I think it's whoever book I finished most recently. I always feel like, oh, I want to write with them. So recently I got to read an advanced copy of Sarah's book, #TagMeForMurder. And I think I would love to collaborate with Sarah.
There you go.
Maybe we can make that happen. And also Kate Lansing just came out with the 4th book in her Colorado wine cozy mystery series, Till Death Do Us Part. And I love that series. I've been recommending it from day one, and I think Kate is phenomenal.
I love it. Leah, I'm totally down to.
Okay. We'll talk.
Well, everybody, our bookish hour has actually gone over 1 minute long. This has been a phenomenal discussion. You all are so wonderful, so amazing. Thank you for sharing your time with us this evening. We do have a very special announcement for our giveaway winner this evening. For our giveaway, if this individual could please email me at giveaways@thebookishhour.com. I just put that in our chat. Our winner this evening for our grand bundle is Sherry Northcutt. Congratulations,
Yay,
Sherry.
congrats,
Thank you
Sherry.
so much for participating. And thank you to everybody who joined us live and for your wonderful questions. It's always so wonderful to get to be bookish with you. And we hope to continue being bookish for many more years to come. But again, thank you for joining us here this evening for our special anniversary event. Annette, Joan, and Leah, let us know real quickly where we can find you online and where you will be in person, or if a virtual event that you have on your calendar next. Annette.
www.AnnetteDashofy.com. Sign up for my newsletter and you'll get all the pertinent information on a monthly basis. And I will be at Malice Domestic and BoucherCon this year in San Diego.
Okay.
Joan, what about
How
you?
about you, Joan?
I will be at Malice Domestic, and you can reach me at joanlongbooks.com. I also have 3 other conferences I'm attending this year. So they're all listed with the dates on my website, joanlongbooks.com. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Leah, what about you? Where can we find you?
I am at leahdobrinska.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there. Otherwise, I am active on Instagram at What Leah Wrote. And I sadly cannot make it to Malice this year, but if you're in Wisconsin, in the Milwaukee area, I will be at the Slinger Public Library on March 27th.
Excellent.
All right.
Awesome.
Very
Perfect.
cool.
Well, again,
Yeah.
thank you, everybody, so much for being here
Yes.
this evening. We truly appreciate you sharing your time with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And to our viewers, we will be back with our regularly scheduled programming next week on our Thursday episode of the Bookish Hour. We're back to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. March 23rd, we'll be joined by history suspense thriller writer Rob Sanborn. He's going to be back talking about his latest book. And for those of you who are new here, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can stay in touch and you can stay bookish with us. Again,
Yeah.
everybody have a wonderful weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And thank you very much for being here. Cheers, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your evening.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.